Hi, everyone. My name is Lee Jia-yi. I've been practicing IP for more than a decade, so about 13 years, and I have been managing IP prosecution work in the Southeast Asia region for local invention protection and foreign application filings into the region for GIP Asean's client for about 7 years. The topic of today's webinar is about how to effectively and efficiently obtain patent protection in Southeast Asia. So here's an outline of today's presentation. We'll start with a brief introduction of Southeast Asia, followed by an overview of the ASEAN patent system. So next, we will delve into the available expedited examination and acceleration programs in ASEAN. And the final part will be presented by Mr. Lok on the patent strategies that utilize the available expedited examination and acceleration programs explained in part 3 to effectively and also efficiently obtain the grant of patents in Southeast Asia. So these two parts are the solutions offered by GIP ASEAN to assist clients in order to smoothly achieve their patenting goals. All right, so Southeast Asia is located here at the south of mainland China, the east of Indian subcontinent, and also the northwest of mainland Australia. So you may wonder what Southeast Asia is most famous for. Most of you know that it's mainly known for its beautiful islands, its welcoming and friendly people. I guess a lot of Southeast Asian here today would agree with this. And also the delicious food, of affordability, and also diverse cultures with many different languages and ethnicities in the region. So ASEAN ranks as the 3rd largest regional economy in Asia and also the 5th largest economy in the world after the US, China, Japan, and Germany. ASEAN, or in full, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, is an international organization to accelerate economic growth, social progress, and cultural development, and to promote peace and security in the region. So there are currently 10 ASEAN member states, including Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Indonesia, Brunei, and the Philippines. So here are some key statistics of ASEAN. With approximately 9% of the world's population, the GDP is about 3.35 trillion in 2021. So according to ASEAN Key Figures 2020, the average annual GDP growth rate for the region from 2000 to 2019 was 5.7%. So by comparison, the US in the same period grew at an average annual rate of 1.99%. So as for patent filings that we are most interested in today, for the period from 2010 to 2019, the average growth for patent filings for the 6 leading ASEAN member states, including Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, was 155%. Foreign applicants filed 6 to 10 times more applications per year compared to locals, and the percentage of these applicants falling into the ASEAN member states is increasing each year. So this shows the extraordinary growth occurring in this region and opportunity available to patent applicants. Moving on to the next part about the patent system in ASEAN. All countries in ASEAN except Myanmar have patent systems. So apart from the utility patent or full patent used to protect inventions, there's also a second-tier patent protection available in some of the ASEAN countries. However, the requirements, the protection period, and even the names of the second-tier patent protection are different. For example, in Laos, one would expect the PATI patent is without the inventive step requirement. However, it does require an inventive step, but a simpler one, meaning it must involve a new technical improvement, but of a lower level inventive step. Even the documents required for patent applications vary for each country. Certain documents require notarization or original documents. The language used for patent application could be different, and translation to the national language of the country is required. So you may wonder if this thought is an error, but it isn't. So in Malaysia, the patent specification can be in either English or in national language Bahasa Malaysia. Some countries accept the English specification at the time of filing, and the translation to the national language can be submitted after filing. But some do not accept English specification when filing the application. Unlike Europe and other economic regions, Southeast Asia is multi-jurisdictional. So there is no regional patent. Filing patent applications in Southeast Asia involves different formalities. The laws have not been completely harmonized, and formality type objections are highly variable between ASEAN countries. Therefore, a one-size-fits-all response does not work here. Patent prosecution on a country-by-country basis can be very inefficient, especially with the ever-evolving patent system and law. And there's also limited online processing and fewer electronic records. So as explained earlier too, the languages used in certain countries are not in English. So multiple languages are used in this region. There are also logistical issues such as the different time zones from North America, from Europe, and also a lot of correspondence are not in English, and a general lack of knowledge of the Southeast Asian business environment and cultural difference. So all these issues raise the question, how to manage a patent portfolio in Southeast Asia. This is the key challenge for patent applicants and also practitioners. GIP Asean is established as an ASEAN hub to provide solutions to these issues by using a one-firm approach to manage the filing and prosecution of all applications for the ASEAN region, so that applicants can have a single point of contact to obtain their patent rights in countries of this region. So with a network of experienced and trained attorneys and agents, such IP hub models can facilitate the preemptive prosecution strategy to avoid or overcome formality objections, the coordinated claim strategy by relying on claims allowed in established jurisdictions with established patent offices like US, Europe, and Japan to expedite the examination process and also proceed to fast allowance. The consistent OA response strategy to reduce the need to repeatedly send the same response instructions when similar prior art objections, especially on novelty and inventiveness, are raised in each jurisdiction. The ASEAN IP Hub established by GIP Asean also facilitates a strategic filing approach, which we will be proposing to you in part 4 by our next speaker, Mr. Lok, to increase patent grant chances and also to speed up the prosecution process with considerations to meet the client's business objectives by using the available expedited examination systems and acceleration programs, which we will be covering now in part 3. Since 2020, every Singapore patent applications has to go through local examinations. However, there's a Singapore fast track system which applicants can employ. So this application has to be first filed in Singapore. There's a limitation of 10 patent applications a month, and each applicant is limited to 2 accelerated applications in a month. And based on our experience, because we have quite a number of clients who are very interested in this program to accelerate the examination process. So based on our experience, even with a one-time office action objection, an application can be granted within 6 months. And that's considered very fast. So apart from that, the Pilot Prosecution Highway Program, PPH, can also be adopted. The Singapore Patent Office, IPOS, has PPH pilot programs with patent officers of Brazil, China, Mexico, and also the EPO by referencing the examination results from another IP office. So IPOS is also a participating office of the Global Patent Prosecution Highway. So next, in Malaysia, there is a modified substantive examination provision that applicants can apply. So the claims of a corresponding application granted in one of these 6 jurisdictions, including US, Europe, UK, Australia, Japan, and Korea, must be adopted by the examiner. Further, an applicant can also request for an expedited substantive examination to be conducted when the application has been published. The request must meet certain conditions, such as the invention has to be of public or national interest. It is of green technology. There is an infringement proceeding taking place, or there is a plan to commercialize the invention. So according to our experience, usually there is no issue for the request to be accepted if the conditions are met. So apart from that, there are also a few patent offices collaborating with the Malaysia Patent Office for the PPH program, including China, Europe, Japan, Korea, and US. In Indonesia, examiners typically would suggest in an office section that applicants adopt the claims of corresponding application that is granted in a major patent jurisdictions to expedite the local examination process. So although there is no expedited examination system in Indonesia, if a corresponding application is also filed in Japan and of course granted, the applicants may also use the PPH system with JPO to facilitate the patent grant. As of Thailand, to solve backlog issues, the examiners would also suggest to applicants to follow the claims of a corresponding application that has been allowed in a major patent jurisdiction. So not long ago, if I'm not mistaken, it was last year, Thailand introduced a target patent fast-track program for inventions first filed in Thailand in the field of medical science and public health that would be beneficial to the public and inventions that can be commercialized in Thailand. So the applicant must have plans to produce, distribute, or license the invention patent or a patent of that invention in Thailand. There are also other requirements, such as it has to be filed through the electronic filing systems. The application cannot have more than 10 claims, and the request can only be made early of the month by the 10th of each month. The Thai Patent Office also has a PPH collaboration with the JPO. The examiners in Philippines are also the same. They would usually suggest in an office session to encourage applicants to use the claims of a corresponding application allowed in a major patent jurisdiction. There's no expedited examination available in the Philippines, but there are several existing PPH programs with other IP offices, including the EPO, the JPO, KIPO, and also the USPTO. It's also the same in Vietnam, where examiners would encourage the adoption of claims of granted corresponding application from a major patent jurisdiction. So in Article 9.6 of this circular in Vietnam, a local acceleration examination is available. But we have checked with the examiner. Due to heavy backlog of patent office, the acceleration request acceptance is rare, and the IP office usually would not accept the request. So in conclusion, it is a formal regulation, but it's rarely or almost not implemented in practice. Vietnam also has PPH collaborations with the JPO and also the Korean Patent Office. So there is a new collaboration between the Vietnam and Singapore Patent Office that started recently in March, known as the Collaborative Search and Examination, CS&E, to speed up the patent search and examination process for inventors that wish to file patent applications in these two countries. So one of the requirements would be the application must be filed first in either Singapore or Vietnam, and the application cannot have more than 20 claims, and including 3 or fewer independent claims. There's also a combined cap limit of 20 applications per year shared by the Singapore Patent Office and also the Vietnam Patent Office, and 2 applications every year. So unutilized number will be rolled over to the following month, subject to a maximum cap of 4 applications per month. So on this side, you can see how this search and examination works. So an applicant files a request for CS&E with Office of First Filing. So for example, he files the CS&E at Office A, for example, Singapore Patent Office. And next, the Office A would conduct provisional search and examination and provide the report to the second office, which is, for example, Vietnam. So Vietnam, which is Office B, also conducts its own examination and shares the report to Office A. Office A will take the report issued by Office B and produce a final report for to be sent to the applicant. The applicant may use this report to decide whether to make a corresponding application at Office B. So with this report, the applicant can decide whether to file in Vietnam. So if he were to file in Vietnam, the search and examination in Vietnam would be prioritized by the Vietnam Patent Office. And usually it takes about just 2 months for a decision to be made by the Patent Office. So keep in mind, the first office, Office A, could be the Vietnam Patent Office, and Office B could be the Singapore Patent Office. So this program allows 2 applications in both Singapore and Vietnam to be expedited and granted earliest within a year. So even if there's only 1 application filed in either Singapore or Vietnam, the application can be granted earliest within 10 months. As for Brunei, the Patent Office currently does not have any local patent examiners. So search and examinations is outsourced to 3 prescribed offices, including the Hungarian Patent Office, the Austrian Patent Office, and also the Danish Patent Office, which can be very time-consuming and would cause delays in the grant of patents. Therefore, when claiming priority of another corresponding patent application, it is recommended by the examiners to rely on a positive search and examination result of a corresponding application, especially if the applicant has the patent application filed in the main jurisdictions like US, Europe, Japan, and so forth. There's no expedited examination available in Brunei, but there's a PPH program with the JPO. Cambodia's patent system is still relatively young. It lacks the infrastructure to examine patent applications. But the Cambodian government has made it possible for an application to be granted in Cambodia through a few agreements with other governments, with accelerated processes that can be completed in months, such as the re-registrations of Singapore and Chinese patents that have a filing date on or after 22nd of January 2003. Cambodia is also the first Asian country to validate European patents filed on or after 1st of March 2018 in its territory. The procedures is pretty simple. So it involves filing a request for validation and paying a validation fee with the EPO. The applicant must also follow the procedures stated by the Cambodian Patent Office, which means the specification has to be translated to the local language. There are also collaborations with patent offices like US, Japan, and also Korea under different program names. They are basically programs that allow the adoption of claims of corresponding applications granted in these countries respectively to expedite the examination process in Cambodia. In Laos, re-registration of Singapore patents is also possible. The Singapore patents must have filing date on or after January 17, 2002. So apart from that, there are also collaborations with Japan and also China, where claims of granted corresponding applications in these countries can be used to accelerate the grant of applications in Laos. So the expedited examination and acceleration programs explained just now are all domestic systems and collaborations of the ASEAN countries respectively with other countries. So what about the region itself? ASEAN has its own regional patent cooperation project known as the ASEAN Patent Examination Cooperation, or in short, ASPEC. It is a program for IP officers from participating ASEAN member states to use the search and examination results from another participating ASEAN member state IP office as reference in its own search and examination work. So that would mean that a search and examination report from an ASEAN member can be shared with another IP office or of another ASEAN member. The participating ASEAN IP office may consider the search and examination documents it receives under the ASPEC. So it means there's no obligation to adopt the S&E reports from the other IP office. But usually the examiners would follow the search and examination report issued by another ASEAN member IP office. So the application will then proceed to grant in the manner that it is in accordance with its national law. In recent years, there are two new systems introduced in to ASPEC, which are the ASEAN AIM, ASPEC AIM, and also the PCT ASPEC. ASPEC AIM is the ASPEC acceleration for Industry 4.0 infrastructure and manufacturing. There will be a turnaround time of 6 months to receive first office session if an ASPEC request is made for Industry 4.0 patent applications. And as for the patent PCT ASPEC, it is an additional choice of relying on the Patent Cooperation Treaty reports issued from an ASEAN International Searching Authority or the International Preliminary Examination Authority. An example would be the Singapore Patent Office. So here's an explanation on how ASPEC works. Considering the corresponding patent applications are Paris Convention applications. In this scenario, a Singapore application is first filed, and then a corresponding application is filed in Malaysia that claims priority from the Singapore application. The ASPEC request is filed in Malaysia, and Malaysia examiners may refer to the search and examination results of the Singapore application. So another scenario, a first application is filed in a Paris Convention country outside of ASEAN, for example, in US. Both the Malaysia application and also the Singapore application claim priority from the US application. The ASPEC request is filed in Malaysia, and Malaysia examiners may refer to the search and examination results of the Singapore application. Now, considering the corresponding patent applications are PCT national phase entries. So in the first scenario, both the Malaysia application and the Singapore application are national phase entry applications from the same PCT application. The ASPEC request is filed in Malaysia, and Malaysia examiners may refer to the search and examination results of the Singapore application. So in the next scenario, an application is first filed in a Paris Convention country, such as US, and after that, PCT application is filed. Next, application national phase entries are filed in Singapore and also Malaysia. So both the Malaysia application and also the Singapore application claim priority from the US application. The aspect request is filed in Malaysia, and the examiners in Malaysia may refer to the search and examination results of the Singapore application. Again, I'm also only using Singapore and Malaysia as examples. Aspect is applicable to all member states of ASEAN, except Myanmar, which currently does not have a patent system. As of December 2022, the average pendency rate to a first office action after an aspect request is 8 months, and 99.3% of the applications achieve allowance, indicating that the aspect program is highly successful in expediting prosecution and achieving allowance of ASEAN patent applications. It is an extremely useful system in the region to expedite patent applications. So all these domestic or international expedited exam and acceleration programs available in this region can be strategically utilized to serve the IP needs of business owners. There are a lot of filing strategies that can be adopted by combining different systems to accelerate the grant of a patent application to meet the applicant's business objectives. In our final part that will be presented by Mr. Lok, our next speaker, he will talk about the types of strategies that can be used to effectively and, of course, efficiently obtain the grant of patent applications in ASEAN countries. I will now pass the time to Mr. Lok. Mr. Lok?
Sorry. Thank you, Jai, for a very elaborate explanation about the various ways to expedite your patent applications in Southeast Asian country. What I'm going to do next is to connect all the dots, all the modified substantive examination system, the accelerated examination system, and also the pilot patent superhighway, to see how this accelerations program can help applicants to obtain a patent in Southeast Asian country in a cost-effective and also in a time-efficient manner. Okay, so first, I would like to propose, right, to the audience today that if you intend to obtain your patent in Southeast Asia, you can consider using a combination of PPH, MSE, modified substantive examination system, and also expect, to obtain your patent grant in the 10 countries in ASEAN. Okay, and these are the steps that we can take for you, right? For all the inbound Southeast Asian national phase application, you can first file your first application either in Singapore or Malaysia, because Singapore and Malaysia, they have either the very extensive PPH network, or they have the modified examination system. So, and you can do your first filing in Singapore or Malaysia, and at the same time request for expedited examination in home country. It can be a patent coming from China, from US, from Europe. You can consider lodging your first application in Singapore or Malaysia. And the second step will be to request for accelerated examination in Singapore through GPPH or PPH, or request for modified examination in Malaysia based on the allowed claim. So that will allow the patent to be granted quickly in one of the ASEAN country. And next, step 3 is to file expat requests in the rest of the ASEAN country, in Vietnam, in Indonesia, in Philippines, in Thailand, in Laos, based on the allowed claim of the first ASEAN application, which was done in Singapore or Malaysia. So this is the one of the way that foreign applicants can speed up their application in ASEAN country, in the entire ASEAN country. And also, the theme for today's topic is how do you achieve cost efficiency and time effectiveness in getting a patent granted. We would like to venture here, to propose to you that it is possible to get your patent granted within 6 months, and also to make your filing cost effective by utilizing some of the IP tax incentive that is available in Singapore, right? So it comprises of the following options. First, if you really want to achieve cost efficiency, there is a tax incentive available. Sorry, let me just move down. There's a tax incentive available in Singapore in budget 2023. The Singapore government has come up with a scheme to support businesses' innovation by giving tax incentive for registration costs. So if you set up a Singapore company and you use a Singapore company to file IP, every dollar that you spend, you have 400% tax deduction, meaning you can deduct $4 from your income tax, from the taxable income that you need to pay. So this is capped at 400, the first 400,000 Singapore dollar, and for the subsequent registration fees that you spend, you have 100% tax deduction, right? So for anything above 400,000 US dollar. So because of that, there are many companies around this region, in the Southeast Asian region, or even beyond Southeast Asia, they strategically set up a Singapore company to be the IP holding company, to take advantage of the various tax incentive to IP owners. And of course, there are also tax incentive for acquire IPs from overseas to Singapore. So using this incentive, the tax incentive, it is one of the way that IP owners, the patent owners, can achieve cost efficiency. And if you want to get your patent granted in the shortest time possible, you may also want to consider, especially for entity in the Southeast Asian country or in Asian country, to use Singapore as the IP hub to do your first filing. Singapore has the Singapore Patent Fast Track Program that allows patent owner to obtain a patent grant within 6 months. And I think this is probably one of the fastest fast track system in the world today, where we have done a couple of applications through this fast track program, and we have managed to get the patent granted in less than 6 months. And if the step number 2 is, if we want to extend the patent to the rest of Southeast Asia, then we can take advantage of expat, right? And based on the allowed claims of the Singapore applications. And if we intend to extend the patent to the rest of the world, Singapore has a very extensive PPH or GPPH network that allows the Singapore granted patent to be extended to the rest of the world. So this is one of the solutions that I would propose to the audience today, using Singapore as a hub extend the patent to ASEAN through expect and through PPH and GPPH to the rest of the world. And this is how it looks like, right? We can put everything together. You can make your first filing in Singapore, get your patent granted within 6 months, and you can consider extending the patent to the rest of Southeast Asia using expect, or you can even extend it beyond ASEAN to the rest of the world. You can look at using, you can file the same patent in China, because this is not a PCT national entry. You can file a patent application together with utility model at the same time. We all know that China is very strict now in granting full patent. So as a backup plan, you probably want to file a utility model together with the patent application, and you allow the utility patent to lapse, if the patent is successfully granted. And you can use the PPH to facilitate the grant in China. You can consider that for Europe, using the PPH arrangement with Europe to extend the granted Singapore patent to European countries, and also to US, right, using the GPPH arrangement to extend the granted Singapore patent to the rest of to US. And of course, the applicant can also consider the rest of the world using a PCT filing to extend the patent to other PCT countries. So these are the two proposal or the two strategies we have in mind, right? As mentioned by Jai, ASEAN is a multi-jurisdictional country, but we will try to make grant faster and easier and cheaper, like using all these regional collaborations like expect, and also the national accelerated patent program offered by different countries, and Singapore happens to be one of the more proactive country, so we can take advantage of all the benefits that the Singapore can offer.